What's up, Titans fans, and welcome to another episode of Titans Global Podcast. I'm your host, Maximus Titan Fan, is with me as always is my good buddy Link. What's up, Link?
What's going on, guys? Good to be here. Tough loss. Obviously, we're going to get into it. Like, subscribe, comment as usual. Most importantly, comment. We got a lot of thoughts that we're going to put out there. I know everybody's been talking on Facebook, Twitter about their thoughts and how they feel about Levis and some pretty wild stuff out there. But hey, bring it here. We want to discuss it. We want to talk it out. We'll get through this together. I promise. So, like, subscribe, comment, jump in that chat. We'll get it going.
That's right, man. I absolutely encourage everybody to get on here, say what you want to say. Even if it's something we totally disagree with, we're going to put it on the screen and talk about it a little bit, at least address it. So get on here and interact with us. Obviously, like I've said in the past, we want you to follow us on YouTube. It's actually growing pretty quickly, almost to 300 subscribers. So really happy about that. But anyway, on to our show. Not before though. Sponsored by Red Zone Builders. Show is sponsored by Red Zone. Got to throw that in there. Oh, and I'm trying to be just jovial and kind of happy and nonchalant, but I will not lie. This is a rough game for me. Just because I had a lot of high expectations, and they were mostly met in the first half. Not totally, but mostly. And then in the second half, it just fell apart. The only thing that didn't fall apart was the defense, but we'll get more into depth on that. Right now, let's just focus on one thing at a time. The bad.
Yep.
Will Levis.
Yeah.
I mean, where do we start? Where do we start, Link?
Yeah, I mean that's the story in this one. I mean, you come out in a game. We've talked about it before, and this was something where I feel that Will Levis single-handedly lost them that game. He was a detriment to the team. Inconsistency, the hero ball stuff has got to stop. It's got to stop.
Absolutely.
Get taking hits, incorrect ball placement, bad decision making, everything you could name as a disadvantage to him coming out in the draft, we saw on Sunday. Every single point. And whether it be fair or not, a lot of Tennessee Titans fans are Tennessee Vols fans. And he's up against it right now because everybody who made these comments coming out of the draft, this guy ain't it. Look at what he did at Kentucky. He's had injury issues. He's had inconsistency issues. You could turn on any Kentucky football game from the 2 years that he was playing, for better or for worse, and you would see the exact same stuff. So, and I'm guilty of it too. I didn't like him coming out of the draft. He changed some opinions last year, but we're very far removed from Atlanta and Miami. This is his first year as the guy, and this is not a good first showing for what may be to come for the rest of this season.
No, man, and I'll be honest with you, I bought into the hype. I truly did. I thought this kid is something special. Not only is he something special on the football field, but he's got an awesome personality. Not afraid of the media. I mean, a lot of things look great about Will Levis. And I still hope that that's the quarterback that we get. I'm not completely turning tail because of one game. We're not hitting the panic button. We're not throwing sirens on. I'm just saying, and we're pointing out, this is not a good look for Will Levis.
Yep.
I mean, under pressure, he was 4 of 11, 51 yards. He did have a touchdown, but 2 interceptions, a fumble, and 42.4 rating. Man, that's just terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, my concern stems from, everything we talked about in the offseason. And then you see all those things. And, when you look at the positives, when you look at the ceiling that he has, you have the leadership, you have the arm talent. But the thing that everybody harked on was the decision making. And Callahan said himself, there was a conversation at halftime of, hey, we're up 17-0 wins, going into halftime, for better or for worse, with what they did in the first half, you felt pretty good because it's like, okay, Last year, I think the average points was 17. You matched that in one half. So all he has to do was come out and not lose the game. As long as there wasn't a complete meltdown with the way the defense played, with the way the running game was working, not consistently, but at times it was working. With
Mm-hmm.
things were going, the only way they lose that game is a complete meltdown at the quarterback position, and that's exactly what you saw. And then to see him on the sidelines, trying to hype everybody up and get everybody going. I mean, that's great when it works. Great when it works, but when it doesn't work, it puts the spotlight on you that much more. And then for him to come out in that last drive and do what he did, the last two drives and do what he did, my concern level right now is at a solid 7.5. Now, granted, first game, new coach, new system, new weapons. I don't think this is what you're going to see all off season. But I said it before we came on. If you go into this bye week in week 5 and you're 1-4, there's some real decisions that have to be made on this football team because I want your opinion. If obviously they weren't, if you put Mason Rudolph in after halftime in the second half, they win that game. Would you agree with that? Because Mason Rudolph, he's not going to lose you games. He's not going to win you games, but he's not going to lose you games. And that was a situation where Will Levis came out and he lost that game.
I can't say no. But see, that's the thing too, man. Is it? Look, the thing is about Will Levis. We talk about him. He has the Ricky Bobby syndrome. If you ain't first, you're last.
Mm-hmm.
The glory football crap. The I'm gonna win the game stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna put the team on the back and just roll with it. Because even when he was avoiding pressure, he was putting himself at risk. And yeah, the throw obviously can't happen. I think he even called it a bonehead play. The head coach said that he would rather have punted 1st and 10 on every attempt in the second half, which is not a bad strategy. We probably would have won if we did that.
Yep.
But I'm not. This is not a hate on Levis Day, but
No.
it is what we talked about. It is exactly what we talked about last season. He got lucky last season where a lot of his interceptions that were thrown directly into the chest of a defender was dropped.
Mm-hmm.
And we even said then, if he catch or if those were interceptions, we'd be having a different story.
Here we are.
I mean,
Yep. And I mean, let's be real. This is a season. Like I said, first game, new offense, new coach, new weapons. But this is a season where this franchise is deciding if he's the guy going forward. And the mistakes, the problem that I have, the biggest problem I have is how the mistakes compound. How when he makes a mistake, it leads into the next play. It leads into the next drive. It leads into the next throw. It's like he lets things. He's so emotional that he lets things pile up, and you just see other quarterbacks. Like for example, the Tennessee Vols game. I don't want to bring college into this, but and I know it's college versus the NFL, but when you're talking about a mentality, the way that Nico Iamaleava, the way that he threw 2 picks in that game, they still won by 41 points. Now, the defense had a lot to do with that. The running game had a lot to do with that. But in this game, we saw a good defense and we saw a decent run game. So if he just doesn't let those mistakes pile up, if he just lets it go, lets it out of his head, don't be on the sidelines walking back and forth trying to hype everybody up. Everybody else is fine. He was the problem. So for me to see that, it just puts that much more of a spotlight on him and the way that he's not able to let things just brush off his shoulder. That's what I need to see from him the rest of the year. That's what this coaching staff and this franchise has to see from him to make sure that he's the guy moving on.
what I will say is what a lot of people have said to me online because I have been touting this kid all off season, talking about his leadership skills and how much he's grown, and he kind of proved me wrong. And a lot of people, I guess, are keeping tabs on me. But anyway, the one guy brought up a really good point. He's pressured 47% of the snaps that he was dropped back. 47%. So that's half. It's pretty close to the numbers he had last season with the offensive line, which we did give him a lot of breaks for. So why not the break now? And I can answer that really easily. It's his second year.
Exactly.
And it's not like he was just a rookie that sat on the bench. He had 8 games. I had a guy say that to me. He's a rookie. And I was like, no, he's not a rookie. He's in the second year. And then he was like, oh, well, he's still really young. And I said, well, yeah, he is young, but he played 8 games last season. He shouldn't be making rookie mistakes. The game should not be moving too fast for him anymore.
Correct.
And he looked like he degressed, not progressed. So.
Correct. And I'm not prepared to say, I'm still, after game one, I'm not prepared to say that this offensive line is a huge up from what they had last year. I think they have more talent. I think they have a higher ceiling. I think by week 5, week 6, that it gets sorted out a little bit. But there are times when I was having flashbacks of Tannehill in the backfield, holding the ball too long. It seemed like he was hesitating, especially in the second half. Because when Calvin Ridley has 2 steps on a defender, you don't get more open than that. He hesitated. There was underthrows. There was overthrows. The ball placement was poor. The release was poor. So, yes, the offensive line did have something to do with this, and J.C. Latham played like a rookie, but he was expected to play like a rookie. He's a rookie in his first game. You have to expect that. You're going to have bumps along the road. Skoronski didn't have his best game. Obviously, you lose Radens in the second half. So, yes, there were problems on the offensive line, but like you said, a lot of that still goes on Levis because he has to know what he's working with in the second year. He's been with these guys all training camp. He knows they're going to bring pressure on him. He knows that his problem is the deep shot. He knows that that's what defenses are going to attack because that's what he's known for. He knows he's going to get pressure. You've got to get the ball out. And some of that's on the coaching staff. All those screens that we saw in the preseason, what happened to that? Where did those go? Where did the wheel routes from the running back go? Where did the quick screen game go? That stuff just went completely out the window. So it's not all on Levis. It's not all on the offensive line, and it's not all on the coaching staff. But you just had a complete breakdown, a complete meltdown in the second half of this game. Everybody's to blame except the defense. Everybody's to blame, but obviously Will Levis is going to have the spotlight on him because he's the quarterback, and that's just the way it goes. Whether it's fair, whether it's unfair, the spotlight's on him. He's the quarterback. He has to learn how to overcome the issues.
Yeah, you nail it right there, man. Because if they win, they get all the glory. If they lose, they take all the blame. That's how it is. It's just like being a head coach. Same thing, man. Although I did find his comments really funny in today's presser about, punting on 1st and 10 every series would have had a better chance of winning the game. Clearly, a little upset with Levis and letting everybody know that he's a little upset with Levis. Don't know if that's going to work out great for him. Hasn't worked out great in the past for head coaches that do that, but I don't really think he cares. I think he's got his own kind of style. So we'll see it.
Yeah, and guys are coached different. I mean, Will Levis is the type of guy. He loves the pressure. He loves the negativity. He wants to play with a chip on his shoulder, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. That's just how it is. Callahan knows that. So, yeah, I mean, he's going to put the spotlight on him a little bit more. That's just going to feed to the drive and whatnot. But at some point, you've just got to let your talent show. You've got to progress as an NFL quarterback. And like you said, at least in game one, I didn't see that progression. I saw regression, and I saw Kentucky quarterback Will Levis is exactly what I saw on Sunday.
Man, I just saw bad decision. I mean, holy crap. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the fling interception is what I call it, because what else are you going to call that? It wasn't even a pass. He just flung the ball. So the problem with this is that he did it earlier in the game. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that when he got to the sidelines, one of his coaches, whether it be the quarterback's coach, offensive coordinator, somebody had to be like, yo, dude, what the hell were you doing? Don't ever do that in a game again. I don't give a shit what's going on. Take the sack.
Yep.
You take the sack.
Yep.
And then he did it again. And this time he didn't get lucky. It was for a pick six. And honestly, I feel like that determined the game right there.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, like you said, he literally handed them the game. I don't want to beat up on Levis the whole time, and we've already been doing it for about 15 minutes, but still, he deserves some of the beat up on this one because he's mostly to blame. I would say 70% goes on
I,
Levis's shoulders.
I'd say 80 to 85. I'd say 80 to 85 because again it compounds. The blocked punt for a touchdown. That's right after another miss to Ridley. So I mean you can look at every point of that game because you've got to go into this game, especially with a rookie quarterback on the other side and a good defense. I mean this is one of the better defenses they'll face all year. Granted, exactly. But you go into this game and you've got to take what the defense gives you. You've just got to take what the defense gives you. And when a play's
Yeah.
over, the play's over. Just let the play be over. And then when the play's over and you throw the interception on a ball that you shouldn't have thrown, and then you sit on your knees, put your hands on your head, and become an internet meme, just get up. I mean, just get. Not everything has to be so dramatic. And I know I'm harking on the guy, and the reason I hark on him is because you see the potential. You know he
Yeah.
can be good, and that's the biggest letdown. Is you know they can be good, but God, it just seems like we go through this year after year after year. It's either the defense let down a stellar offense performance or the offense let down a stellar defensive performance. And that's where I have an issue because it's just the same thing week after week after week.
Yeah, and I was hoping with all this change that we saw in the offseason, and I still feel like we're headed that way. It's just we might not be headed there as quickly as I'd hoped. And again, this is just first game, man.
It is.
I'm not saying we need to, pull the ripcord and throw the emergency parachute out the window or anything like that. I'm just saying not what we expected as fans,
No.
with this historical offseason we've had of attaining talent.
Yep. And I agree. But I will say, I think this, and before we get to the positive, I think this one haunts you. I think when we get down to the end of
Oh,
this
we ain't
season,
close to done with bad yet.
I think when we get down to the end of this season, we're going to be looking back to this game, whether it be because of playoff hopes, whether it be just because of how bad it was. This is going to stick
Hmm.
with us all season long. Because do you
Yeah.
know how many teams? Do you know how many teams have been down 17-0 with less than 150 yards and came back and won the game? One. And you saw it on Sunday with a rookie quarterback. That's the problem I have. Is all you had to do was be not even average. Not even average. You just had to not give them the game. And that's exactly what they did. So this one's going to sting. This one's going to stick with them. And looking at the schedule, if there's not a serious improvement week to week, I'm struggling to see. I'm struggling to see 8 wins. I'm struggling to see 8.
Yeah, man. I'll be honest with you, dude. One of my guys that doesn't watch football at all at work was like, "Hey, man, how'd the Titans do?" And he was just
Yeah.
being nice. Like I said, you don't know shit about football, and I was like, "Oh man, it was bad." And he was like, "Oh yeah," and I was like, "Yes, historically, we set records in the wrong way."
Yep.
And I'll be honest with you, I apologize to everybody who's watching the show because I'm going to have a really hard time not cursing through most of the show because it's just, man. I mean, all right. So we're going to get off Levis. We're going to start talking about the O line. Main thing with the O line for me was, first of all, we're going to talk about the good part of the game, the first half.
Mhm.
We kept shooting ourselves in the foot with procedural mistakes and false starts and bullcrap that should have been fixed in the preseason.
Mhm.
And I understand they're a young line and that they're still trying to mesh but nah, just not what I was expecting from the O line. And even when they did do well, it was mostly in the run game. Even in the first half, when they were doing well, when the O line won, most of the time was on run plays and pull run plays, like they would pull a guard or
Absolutely.
something like that. So it gave the offensive line a little bit of an advantage because the offense always has a slight advantage as long as you're as fast as the defense. You have the advantage because you're moving first. They have to react. You're just acting. That's really all I have to say about that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And to build on that, we
Mm.
said in the preseason, when they were doing all the guard pulling and stuff, we expected that coming into this one, and that's exactly what they did, and it worked to a point. I don't necessarily like Pollard up the middle as much as they did. I felt like that became a little stale after a while. When it works, it works. When it didn't, it didn't. I mean, it's as simple as that. Much higher snap count than Tajay Spears had. I'm not sure if that's something where I'd say they were going with the hot hand, but neither hand was really that hot to begin with. So a little fascinated by the snap count difference there. Saw some good chip blocking from the running back position. That wasn't bad, but all in all, like you said, the pre snap penalties, stuff that should have been cleaned up. And the only difference in the first half and the second half is that in the first half they were able to overcome those penalties, and then they weren't. So they got into third and long situation. I think their average third down was like 7.5 yards to go.
Mm-hmm.
So in the first half, they were able to overcome that. They were able to get behind the sticks, still go to work, still get the run game going. And then the Bears just shut them down. I mean, it was as simple as that. So, yeah, I don't think the first half was as clean as what everybody thought. I think I texted you at halftime and said, glad to be 17 points, but this was not a perfect half. Still a lot of stuff to clean up. So they were kind of gifted those 17 points, in my opinion. Obviously, they earned them, but the Bears were not doing themselves any favors in the first half, same way the Titans did in the second half. So not a perfect first half. Yes, there was some positive, a lot more positive than the second, but still a lot of things that have to be sorted out going into week 2 because this schedule does not get easier at all.
No. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the Jets look like yet. They're playing right now. And I did not watch any football before I got on here. I was busy enough, but you look like you want to say something. Do you know something I don't?
No, it's just I mean, Aaron
Okay.
Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's played decent tonight, but this is still Aaron Rodgers. This is an
Oh, okay.
explosive. It's an explosive Jets offense. So yeah, I mean, it just this was your shot. You get a rookie quarterback, you get some pressure on him. This felt like your shot. This was a gimme, and it just turned into a disaster.
Yeah, and the other huge glaring problem with our game was special teams.
Mm-hmm.
And special teams was like very 50-50 on the defensive and offensive sides. The offense sucked
Mm-hmm.
on special teams as far as that goes. The kicking teams didn't. I mean, Folk did good. Stonehouse had a good average. I'm not talking about those guys. I'm talking about the dudes that's supposed to block for Stonehouse that
Mm-hmm.
got him hit, and the dudes that are supposed to tackle. Oh my God. They run off like what, a 64-yard run, I think it was. And excuse me, 67-yard run on a kickoff and a 20-yard run on a punt return.
Mm-hmm.
Can't have plays like that, man. I mean, those are the plays that I was talking about I wanted to see in the NFL, just not against my Titans.
Yeah.
I wanted to see them, Titans do it against other people.
Yeah. Well, and you saw the difference because the Bears had a great special teams performance. I think on the Stonehouse block that looked like it was Gibby. Am I right in that? He pretty much just whiffed that block, which led to the
Yep.
blocked punt. And then, but on the flip side, Jaquan Jackson did not have a bad return game. But you saw the difference. You saw the difference. When Jaquan Jackson got the ball, he was having to move and make guys miss and get upfield and turn and spin and do all these things to try to free himself. When the Bears got the ball, there was just nobody there. There was nobody
Yeah.
around them. So you saw the difference. The Bears swarmed the returns where the Titans seemed like they were just kind of sitting back almost in coverage. Just, okay, we're just going to try to not give up a touchdown. We're not going to give up a home run. You've got to go attack the returner. I mean, that's a given in any NFL game. And the difference to me was glaring on the returns, seeing how the Titans were able to cover and how the Bears were able to cover, just an absolute night and day difference for me.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder how much they regret saying in that presser at the cut days that, it wasn't about guys and special teams like it was with, Vrabel and the other coaches before. It was about the guys and the skill players. That's why we kept so many tight ends that were inactive this game.
Yep.
Sorry. It's just one of my little. I get flared up sometimes, but we're not going to talk about bad stuff anymore. We're going to talk about some good stuff because there was some good stuff that
There
happened in
was.
the game, and we're going to talk about that first. A really quick word from our sponsor, Red Zone Builders, and my beautiful face. What's up, Titans fans? Maximus Titan fan here. Are you in need of professional excavation services? Look no further. Red Zone Builders has the expertise, experience, and equipment to handle all or any excavation project, big or small. Whether you need land clearing, site preparation, trenching, foundation excavation, or any other excavation services, they have you covered. Their team of skilled professionals will work diligently to ensure your project is completed safely, efficiently, and to your satisfaction. Trust the experts at Red Zone Builders to get the job done right. I mean, if you can't trust that guy, who can't you trust? So, anyway, to the good part of the show, the part we've all been waiting for, the good stuff. We already talked a little bit about it, but special teams had some good play. Folk was perfect, which is nice. Stonehouse had a 53-yard average, 59 long, which was nice. And we had some really solid returns by JJ, man. 7.5 average on 4 punt returns and a 25-yard average on 5 punt returns, or on 5 kick returns. It's pretty good. It's not bad. It's not stellar, but it's not bad. Feel like he did a really good job in getting us what field position we could get. Blocking, like you said, not that great. Tackling,
Yep.
we're talking about the good stuff, though. That's what we're talking about now. So, yeah, that's all the good stuff I have to talk about special teams. Other than the Chestnut.
Yep.
Chestnut made a great heads-up play in covering a fumble. We can only turn it into 3 points, which kind of falls back on the coaching thing we were talking about, because I feel like some of those plays were not the correct calls to make at the time. Why do we keep doing end rounds by Burks, by the way? Just really, really hardcore left there, but why does that keep happening? This is the second regime now that have tried multiple times to give him an end around or jet sweep or whatever the hell you want to call that play, but it doesn't work well.
No, it doesn't.
He looks big and bulky and doesn't look fast at all. But that play should be done by JJ. That's who should be getting that play.
Yeah, I agree. When you're talking about open space and who gives you the most explosive opportunity, that's Jaquan Jackson's job. Just because Traylon Burks is on this football team doesn't mean I need to see him on the field. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. Until he proves otherwise, I don't need to see him on this field, and he has not proven. I don't know what he looks like in practice, but when he gets in a game situation, I know we're done with the bad, but when Traylon Burks gets in a game situation, it's like everything that he's learned and everything he's good at just completely goes out the window. The physicality goes away, the size advantage goes away, the speed goes away. So I don't care how good he looks on paper until he proves that he can hold up in a game at a receiver position. I don't need to see him on trickery plays. Get him at a base receiver position, let him prove something, and then go from there. So that's my final thoughts on Traylon Burks.
That's me, man. Stop trying to use this guy like Cordell Patterson. He's not him. He's not a good receiver, if you ask me. But that's just my opinion. Anyway, moving on, talking about good stuff. So most of the rest of the show is going to be about the defense. Y'all know that, right? Because that's the best thing that happened. That's really the only great thing. Traylon, but that's actually pretty funny, Newsom. Yeah, you got a pretty good joke there. Traylon busts. Anyway, Bears were held to 2 of 13 third down conversions. 148 total yards. 0 touchdowns. Got 2 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, and 5 quarterback hits. But overall, the defense played lights out. Stellar, awesome defense. Anything you got on the overall?
No, I completely agree with that. To see Landry get a sack, to see him back is always a good thing. A lot of impressive stuff for me, especially on the defensive line. Colburn just continues to be super agile at that size. He's a record. Not only he showed not only in the run game and in the pass game as well. He caused that pressure on Caleb Williams that forced him outside the pocket, which ended up being a sack. And then Tavondre Sweat. I mean, he deserves the hype. I mean, I'll say it. Just in the first game, he deserves the hype. The biggest question going into this game for me with Tavondre Sweat was how much can he stay on the field? We know he's got talent. We know he's a game wrecker. We know he's an X factor. But how much can he stay on the field? He played 10 less snaps than Jeffrey Simmons. 10 less snaps than Jeffrey Simmons. So for me, just the availability, him being able to be out there to keep up, to show the conditioning, to keep working through blocks, because there was times when Jeffrey Simmons was literally triple teamed. I mean, there is tape that shows him triple teamed, and
Yep.
then that allows guys like Colburn, like Sweat, like Joseph Day, like Harold Landry, that allows them to go to work. So you know, I don't think this is going to be a huge sack season for Jeffrey Simmons, but I think it can lead to a huge sack season for Tavondre Sweat. If he just keeps working, staying on the field, and doing what he does, it's going to be a hard decision of who are we going to double. So yeah, keep eating up blocks, keep doing what you're doing. That was one of the biggest spotlights on defense for me, was just his availability for sure.
Absolutely, man. Sweat and Simmons are gonna be a problem, man. We all wanted to see what they were gonna look like, and they absolutely did not disappoint. Sweat came out, I mean, stuffing runs,
Mm-hmm.
getting in the quarterbacks, just did a great job. Not only that, like you said, played 70% of the defensive snaps.
Mm-hmm.
That is way higher than I thought his snap total was going to be. I figured he'd be at best a 2 down defensive lineman. Nah, Sweat was out there a lot, man. Give that dude major credit, because, yeah, he had a lot of critics coming in. Continue to perform like this, dude. Yeah, our defense is going to be nasty this year,
Mm-hmm.
just because of those two dudes on the line. Then you add Landry and Key occasionally. And then you got people rushing up the middle like Murray and Ernest. I mean, it's looking pretty good as far as that goes.
Yeah, and then
Pressure.
pressure looked good, and then even when the pressure didn't get home, to see a secondary that can hold up in coverage is something we haven't seen in a long time. And I don't care if it was a rookie quarterback. When you've got NFL receivers, when you've got guys like Roma Dunzier out there, it's tough to stick to that guy. And we saw what this secondary is all about. I mean, they played tight coverage, had a lot of pass breakups, and Amani Hooker. I said it all offseason. If
I
he
was
can
gonna.
just get a chance to do his job and not have to worry about the corners, if he can just get a chance to do his job, he's going to be a star. And we saw that. 2 pass breakups, a quarterback hit, tied the team in overall tackles. I mean, he was everywhere. He was absolutely everywhere. It was Kevin Byard flashbacks. So Amani Hooker, if he can keep doing what he's doing, Quandre Diggs looked good. And then the corners, McCrary had a breakup, an excellent breakup. Sneed is exactly what we thought Sneed was. So, yeah, I mean, for the secondary to hold up in coverage, that means even when the line doesn't get home, it's not a busted play on defense. It's not a touchdown every time. So, to see the defense play off each other, complementary defense is the best way I can describe it. And that's what we've been waiting on.
Yeah, man. I have to agree with you. Sneed, seeing them on the field, Sneed and Awuzie. Awuzie did go out, I think, for one drive, came in. Brownlee did an excellent job. There was, I think, a second drive in the later parts of the game that Brownlee came in again. But point is, Brownlee had a great game. But beyond that, Sneed, Awuzie, and Diggs, all three played an immense amount of snaps in this game. They all played well, which allowed playmakers like Hooker, you just brought up,
Mm-hmm.
and McCreary, who had a career game, by the way. 3 tackles for loss. That's a career high for him. And 5 tackles. I thought McCreary did well. Hooker did well. Sneed, even though he got called on one play, I don't care. I'd rather you be aggressive and get called
Absolutely.
for the pass interference nowadays, because I'll be honest with you, they're not calling it nearly as much as they used to.
Mhm.
So I say the more aggressive and the more physical you are, the better.
And how many
And,
points? And so he gives up the penalty, plays physical because that's what Snead is. How many points do they end up giving on that drive? None.
yeah, none.
Exactly. So you can play aggressive, you can play press coverage, you can take chances at sticking to a receiver if you've got a defense solid enough to hold up when you give up that penalty. So I'm not okay with the penalty, but he came in to set a message. He came in to set a message, and that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, and I thought he did a really, really fair job of just displaying that message to
Absolutely.
everybody. I'm gonna be a physical guy, whether it's here or there or whatever, and I'm not injured. I'm ready to go. So yeah. Uh, Sebastian Joseph Day.
Hmm.
It's another huge bright spot. Played his first game as a Titan, blew it up. 3 tackles, a sack, 2 for loss, and a pass defend. As a rotational defensive lineman, that's amazing.
Hmm.
So I'm really happy with him. And Landry, man, you mentioned it before, but it looks just like he did last year.
Yep.
I think he was tied with Monty Hooker or right under Monty Hooker for the tackles.
Yep.
Uh, I don't know. I think he had 1 sack, tackle for loss. I don't know why I didn't write any of this down, but Harold Landry was a huge bright spot for me when I saw him get that sack. That and Colburn.
Hmm.
A lot of people said, "Oh, well, that wouldn't happen if that was a starting quarterback and
Yeah,
that
it
wasn't
does.
a preseason game. That wouldn't happen. Quarterbacks don't run straight back like that, and big dudes can't chase down everybody." Really? So
Yeah.
I saw that big dude chase down supposedly one of the fastest and most mobile running backs, or excuse me, quarterbacks in the NFL. And, mm, just thought of something else that made me mad, but never mind that. We're talking about the good stuff. Talking about the good stuff. Any other any other thoughts you want to give on the defense and how they did?
Yeah, no, I'm with you on the depth. To see depth players able to come in and play like that when you can have, and again, not to go back to college and Tennessee Vols, but I'll say this: the one thing Tennessee the Vols lacked last year was depth at the line position. They struggled in games because they had the same pieces. They couldn't get pressure. The defense was tired. We saw the same thing with the Titans. Now you're seeing a switch when you have depth at that
Oh
position
yeah,
and you can rotate defensive linemen in and out of plays and get the same production, the same results, that's huge for any team. So to see the depth at the defensive line position, that carries. And I'll say, I mean, I think by the end of the year, this is I don't think that was a fluke. I think this is easily a top 10, maybe a top 5 defense in the
I
NFL.
agree.
They've just got to get some help from the offense. Even though they have depth, even though they have rotational pieces, they can't be out there that much. So great job of holding up, but it's the first game. If you've got to do this every week, it's gonna start to wear on you, no matter how much depth you got.
Yep, and that's the part that worries me the most
Mhm.
is the defense can look great and can be great, but if they're not given a break every now and then by the offense, excuse me, sustaining a drive, then they're just going to wear out
Yep.
towards the end of the game. They're going to get busted for a huge play, just like
Mhm.
old Titans used to do.
Yep.
Can't leave your defense on the team or on the field 3/4 of the game. That just don't work. Last thing that I want to talk about that's positive, Pollard. Tony Pollard has been a nice little surprise. I'll be honest. I thought, and I said many times in my preseason, that Tajay Spears was going to be the number one running back, and I still believe that he might be by the end of the season.
Mhm.
However, right now, Tony Pollard is at least making his case known as to why he should be getting the lion's share of the carries. First quarter alone, he had 7 attempts for 57 yards, 8.1 yard per carry, and a touchdown in the first quarter.
Mhm.
Now, in the end of the game, he only had 16 attempts for 82 yards and a 5.1 yard per carry with just the same touchdown. So that doesn't carry great throughout the entire game, which is definitely a problem. And I think part of that is play calling, like you pointed to earlier, where we kept running him up the middle, which I
Mhm.
don't understand why we kept doing that. I feel like the edges of every defense is the weak point,
Yep.
especially when you got quick guys like Tony Pollard that can make you miss. And Tajay Spears. By the way, Tajay Spears only got 4 attempts. We alluded to this earlier about how little he got. 4 attempts rushing compared to Tony Pollard's 16.
Yep.
And Brian Callahan even said in his presser today that that was a mistake and he would try to do a better job at delegating the touches. But yeah, I mean, they both got 4 receptions each, but that rushing is just terrible, man. The spread there is terrible.
Yeah, and I think a little bit of that has to do. Obviously, I think Pollard is a better blocker. He had some pretty good chip blocks. I think he does a great job at that. And then you get into passing situations when you're behind the sticks. We talked about, their average third down was like 7.5. So you kind of got to keep him on the field in those passing situations. And then it seemed like they wanted to move the ball fast. Seems like they wanted to do some of the no huddle stuff. When you do the no huddle stuff, obviously harder to sub in running backs, harder to sub in anybody at that point. So I feel like that's maybe why Tajay was left out a little bit, because they go from a third and long, they convert, he stays on the field, they call a running play on first down. So I think that may have led a little bit to why he had more touches. But Tajay's still a weapon. I mean, I think that he deserves a chance. Again, we talked a lot about how they're going to utilize both of these backs, and I still don't see it. I don't know how it works. I thought we'd see some more split back type stuff, especially maybe leading to some screens. So something they got to figure out. But again, it's a new system. It's week one. I think they hashed this out a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
you've got to get Tajay involved more. When you've got playmakers like Tajay Spears, like Jaquan Jackson, you've got to find a way to get him involved, especially when you're not hitting your deep shots. Felt like Tajay could have been a huge weapon in the second half that just wasn't used by the coaching staff.
Agreed. Just like you said earlier in the show, where are all those screens we saw in the preseason?
Exactly.
Those would have worked great. We saw a couple by Van Nett, but it was the same play twice. I just don't
And Vanette's not the
understand.
guy you want to run a screen of the you kept tight ends on this roster for a reason. Everybody has their own skill set. Vanette's skill set is not a running tight end. He's not a vertical threat. So if you're gonna run a screen pass to a tight end, you've got Chigakonkwo, you've got Josh Wiley. Why are we running screen passes to Vanette? That's the issue I had with that. Even when they ran a screen pass, when they ran the right play, they ran it to the wrong guy. So whatever. But
Yeah, just like the Burks thing with the
yeah,
I just don't
yeah,
get why they keep trying that. Oh, and you're so right, man. I mean, JJ would have been so much better. Tajay or hell, Tony Paul, any of those guys would
anybody,
have been better. Yeah,
anybody.
why Van Nett? So, little off the. Oh, hang on here. Pollard should be a running back. Oh, scat back. Our strength was it. You know, I don't tend to totally agree with that, Derek, but I don't disagree with it either. I feel like Tony Pollard is a more, I don't want to say well-rounded, because he just really, honestly, they seem like the same back to me, or the same type of back to me. They're just, one's a lot younger than the other one. So one has a little bit more burst, one has a little bit more savvy, in
Mhm.
my opinion.
Yeah, I still think Tajay gives you a little bit more explosiveness. I like to see him get out on the edge more. I think Pollard's good for your. I'd like to see more of what we saw. I can't remember which. It may have been the last preseason game, but he had a chip block that led to a wheel route. Caught it on the sideline. I mean that's the kind of stuff I want to see with Pollard. Some of the chip block and get out. And again, I'm not opposed to seeing both of the guys in the backfield at the same
Hmm.
time. I think when you've got weapons like that, you've got to find a way to use them. I think that offer a lot of trickery to the defense, not knowing which guy's going out, which guy they need to cover. Is it going to be a run play? Which side are they running to? Then they pull a guard and takes off one way, goes the other. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunity they have with those two running backs. I think, but I'm not as worried about that just because again, it's week one, it's a new system. You're trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. Obviously, nothing worked on Sunday, so we'll probably see a completely different set come next week. So yeah, I think that'll get sorted out. I think by week 6, week 7, the running back's going to be the least of my concerns.
Oh yeah, well it is right now anyway.
Yeah,
I mean, right now I'm not concerned about our running backs. I
yeah,
mean it's not a big deal to me. I'm like, hey, they're good. It's
yeah,
the offensive line and
absolutely.
our quarterback.
Yep.
Speaking of quarterbacks, though, and a little off topic because I know this is a Titans show, but I mean he was a Titan a couple weeks ago. Do you know? Because I know your opinion was that the Green Bay Packers were dumb for trading a pick for a guy that probably was going to be a waiver wire request. But do they look the same amount of dumb now? I
Yeah,
still think they do,
yeah,
personally.
yeah. No, I absolutely do, and
I'm
it's
glad you answered
crazy.
that at the same time.
It's crazy. It's crazy that I said I think we were off air. We may have been on air. I was like, how wild would it be if going into this Green Bay game, Malik Willis ends up starting against the Titans, and how mad would you be if they beat him? And looking at this game and the way the Titans just performed, and then it looks like Malik could be the starter for at least 2 to 3 weeks. Hey, it's not a insane possibility that that exact scenario happens. So I will say the reason I still don't agree with the Green Bay decision to trade for Malik is don't be shocked if they go out and get a veteran in free agency right now. I mean, you've got Tannehill on the market. You've got a lot of guys on the market right now that are sitting on the couch waiting for a call. I don't know how there was a report that came out. I think it was Diana Rossini that said they maybe had reached out to Tannehill. Wouldn't that be wild if you just have the same
Look,
quarterback room in Green Bay that you had in Tennessee last year?
I will agree that would be nuts, but to be honest, LaFleur came out and said, I think it was earlier today, that Malik Willis is the starting quarterback if Love can't go.
Hey, good luck.
Not to say that they're not going to attain another quarterback and try something else, but yeah, it looks like Malik is starting
If you're
right
Tannehill,
now.
do you even take that call to back up Malik Willis, to back up your backup from 2 years ago? I mean, do you even entertain that possibility?
Yeah, it
Because I mean,
depends on how much money you're talking about. I mean,
that's
you
true.
want to do $1 million? Yeah, all right. I might have to play 2 games for $1 million. Yeah, all right.
Mm. I don't know. It's a wild world we live in. So yeah, I mean to see that happen, and hey, all the best to Jordan Love. I mean this was a possible MVP candidate we were talking about before the season started. He goes down, looks like an MCL strain, which I think that's what Tannehill dealt with a lot while he was here in Tennessee. So best of luck to him. Hope he figures it out. And Malik Willis, I mean, hey, you showed out in the preseason. You wanted your shot. You wanted an opportunity. Here it
Here
is,
you
young
go.
fella. Go get it. Yep. Go get it.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see what you can do as an NFL starter.
Yep.
So yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess you're kind of right there, but yeah, we talked about that earlier. The offensive line definitely has to. I mean, that's where it all starts. It all starts in the trench. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. What?
Mm-mm-mm.
Anyway, he's honestly been asking about when the show. He's like, man, can you help me out here, man? I keep missing your show. So I literally dropped him a message right before we came live and was like, show's about to start because I forgot to tell him earlier today. So Derek, there you go, man. There's your shout out. But I'll be honest with you, I'm not really thrilled about this week. I was not really thrilled about coming home and talking about this and rehashing all this stuff over and over and over again and looking at it from many different angles because it was embarrassing, if I'm being honest. I didn't want to talk about it at work. Everybody that asked me about it, I gave short answers. because who the hell wants to talk about a team that craps the bed halfway through the game?
Mhm.
But he said I missed half the cast. Well, dude, Mondays are our show all the time. I mean, it never changes. Monday at 9 o'clock, 8 Central Time, 9 Eastern. Every Monday. Doesn't matter what's going on unless we're actually taking off in the off season, which does happen occasionally, but still, even most of the off season, every Monday, we're here giving you awesome live content just like tonight. Even though we had a really rough week this
Yep.
we're still
So
here.
after a day removed, where is your concern level as a whole for this team moving forward the rest of the season? Scale of 1 to 10. How concerned are we moving forward?
I mean, concerned as far as making the playoffs.
Playoffs. How? Okay, I'll pose it two ways. How concerned are we at this being a successful season, which is a playoff push, and what's your comfortability level with Will Levis as the guy?
All right. Well, as far as Will Levis is the guy, I feel like he needs to overcome some of his natural tendencies,
Mm-hmm.
which, as a creature of habit myself, I understand that is a really tall task
Mm-hmm.
to ask of somebody. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little more than worried after seeing that performance and the panic level that 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 occurred throughout that game with him, or what seemed like it occurred with him throughout that game, of him slowly trying harder and harder, which just made it worse and worse. Quicksand. They talk about it in the replacements. You don't know what I'm talking about? Go watch that movie. It's a great explanation of what I'm talking about right now. But I feel like, yes, it can work. We have a high ceiling. Absolutely, we do. We can be successful. And yeah, they are implementing a new system. So I totally feel like, yes, he can do it. But am I worried about it? Yeah, I'm a little more worried than I was before this game for sure.
Yeah. And I would agree with that. I would say and here's the thing about it. If he can't grow as a quarterback, if he can't overcome the inconsistency, if he can't adapt and change with this coaching staff, with Brian Callahan, with the team that they've put together, which is basically a quarterback room, if it's not going to happen here, it's not going to happen anywhere. This is this is still the best possible place for him to grow. Um, with that being said, I don't know when you're stuck in those tendencies when you do those things as a quarterback, when it comes down to ball placement and decision making, that's stuff that yeah you can teach in practice, but when you hit the field and when you've got 300-pound men running straight at you, when you've got to make a 50-yard bomb to win a game, that's when you start to revert back to old habits. That's when you start to revert back to what you think you're good at. So that's the issue I have. And I don't know that next week can change that for me. I don't care if he comes out next week and he throws for 6 touchdowns and 400 yards. That doesn't fix last week for me, because until you can do it on a consistent basis, I'm not going to believe it. Because like I said, we're very far removed from Atlanta. We're very far removed from Miami. You're only as good as your last game. You're only as good as your last game. And until you can string together 3, 4 games in a row and show me you can do it on a consistent basis, I'm not sold on you. And I don't think this coaching staff's going to be sold on you. And your leash just got a little bit shorter. Your leash just got a
Yeah,
little bit
well,
shorter.
I mean, that's just human nature, man. I
Yeah.
mean, humans naturally, and this is actually psychology, humans naturally focus on the negatives more.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't know why. Even as an optimist, because I am totally an optimist, I'm always thinking we're going to be great and we got a chance. And I'm always looking at the ceiling instead of the floor because, why else are we football fans? But point is every now and then you got to bring it down a little bit to figure out that you know is this a guy, and like we said many times this offseason, that's what this season is about, is
Absolutely.
finding out, is this your guy? So really, and Derek kind of brings it up, but can Callahan
Mm-hmm.
tally his system around Will Levis enough and fix the offensive line enough to make him successful in the NFL? And I feel like a lot of that has to do with moving around the pocket and creative play calling, which I really hope this group of people can put together, at least more creative than it was last week. Then yeah, I guess my hopes will go up a little bit higher than maybe it's just because I'm an optimist, but yeah, it's still going to take me a good, like you said, man, we're going to need to win and look good
Mm-hmm.
throughout to the bye now
Yep.
before I'll be comfortable coming out of the bye.
Yep.
So
yeah, we'll see what happens. It's a long road ahead. This was week 1. I mean, yeah, it's obviously there's going to be overreaction. We may be having a completely conversation week 5. As football fans, we reserve the right to change our minds.
That's right.
Nothing is set in stone. So, yeah, it could be a completely different conversation, but it's a long road ahead. Long road ahead for the coaching staff, long road ahead for these players. Just want to see the defense stay consistent. Just want to see Will Levis continue to grow. You know, to try to have some better decision making, and I think they'll get it figured out. It may not look perfect, and I'm not even going to say 100% that he's the guy, but it has to look better than last week. I'm not going to say it can't get worse because we've been down that road before, and believe me, it can always get worse. But I think that's one of the more poor performances that we'll see this year, and it's only up from here. That's the only way to go.
Absolutely, man. And if you guys are still here from the beginning of the show, we really appreciate it. Our hardcores, man. Derek, if you don't want to miss another show, man, the best thing to do is to go to our YouTube channel, Titans Global Podcast, subscribe and hit that stupid little bell there that then you never miss another show. It'll always tell you, hey, these guys are going live. You might want to check it out. Or, well, most of the time it does. Some of the ones I subscribe to still don't do that. But my point is you got a better chance of finding us that way. So go to YouTube, check us out. And again, you get some content that you don't get everywhere else. And something else we're actually cooking right now. I don't want to quite announce it yet, but we're still cooking on it. I think we might fine tune it a little bit, and y'all might be seeing that really soon. But I think that's it for this show.
Yep, absolutely. Like you said, big things to come. Week 1 is over. You know, nothing to look forward to, but next week got some big games ahead. So stay tuned, stay in touch with us. Obviously, any announcements, any new little segments we have, we'll bring to you guys. So make sure to stay notified, stay up to date with us, and we'll see you next time.
Absolutely. And I don't want to talk about this game anymore after this week unless
not.
we're just, looking back on it or something like that. But I'm done with this game. I don't want to look back on this game anymore. So until next week, or excuse me, not next week, Thursday.
That's right.
Till Thursday, tighten up.
I know.
Peace out.